You are putting in the work, sending cold emails, booking meetings, trying to get clients, but there's just one problem. Your lead list is full of people who will never buy from you. Does that sound familiar? Maybe you pulled a lead list from Apollo, scraped LinkedIn, or used some other tool that promised you targeted leads, but now you're just stuck sorting through a mix of businesses that don't fit your offer at all. Some are too small to afford your services, others are way too big and already have an in-house team. And then there are the ones who aren't even in your market. If you're not careful, you end up wasting time, money, and effort chasing the wrong leads. What if you could automatically qualify every lead on your list before you ever send a single email? What if you could instantly filter out the ones that aren't a fit and only focus on the prospects that actually match your ideal customer profile? Here's a quick look at some of my cold email results. These campaigns aren't just blasting messages to random businesses. I'm reaching out to the right people with the right messaging because I've already done the hard work of qualifying and segmenting my leads. This right here is the power of segmentation. Because I've pre-qualified my leads, checking if they're US-based, B2B, and the right company size, I can craft messaging that speaks directly to their needs. So no more generic outreach, no more wasted emails. Instead of wasting time on the wrong leads, I get higher response rates, better conversions, and most importantly, more booked meetings. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do the same using AI and automation inside of n8n. I'll walk you through how I personally set up lead qualification so you can spend less time guessing and more time booking meetings with the right people. Now, let's talk about why this is such a big deal. Most lead lists are a complete mixed bag. Even if you think you've pulled a solid list from Apollo or LinkedIn, chances are it's filled with a combination of relevant and completely irrelevant prospects. You've got businesses that don't fit your criteria, companies that are too small to afford your service, and massive corporations that already have in-house teams handling exactly what you do. Because here's the kicker. Those filters inside lead databases, they're not always as accurate as you think. Just because a tool says a company is B2B doesn't mean it actually is. Just because it shows a certain company size doesn't mean it's correct. That means you still have to manually check, verify, and clean up your list before reaching out. And let's be honest, that is a complete waste of your time. This is also the point where most people burn through their time and burn through their resources. If you're sending hundreds or even thousands of cold emails to the wrong people, your response rates suffer, your domain reputation tanks, and worst of all, you're not getting clients. That is why segmentation and qualification is so important. Because when you properly qualify and categorize leads, you're not just reaching out to random businesses, you're crafting highly specific messages that speak directly to the right people. And that is what makes the difference between getting ignored and actually booking meetings. So, how do you fix this? How do you stop wasting time on bad leads and start focusing only on businesses that actually need what you offer? Well, if you're new here, my name is Clarence. I run an automated lead gen agency that helps businesses scale at lightning speed. And here's the thing, my job isn't just about sending emails. It's about making sure my clients get qualified leads who actually book meetings. Because if I'm reaching out to the wrong people, nothing else matters. That is why filtering and segmenting leads is a non-negotiable in my process. If you're serious about taking your outreach to the next level, I've got a school community where I break down these automations in even more detail. You can download my workflows, see step-by-step breakdowns, and learn the fastest way to get clients using AI and automation. The link is in the description if you want to check it out. But let's get into today's issue, automatically qualifying your leads so you only focus on the right prospects. Instead of manually sorting through lists and second-guessing every contact, I'm going to show you how to set up an automated qualification system using n8n. This will filter out bad leads instantly and segment the ones that actually fit your ICP, so you can personalize your messaging and increase your chances of getting a response. Let's stop wasting time and dive into the workflow. Okay, so looking at this workflow from left to right, you can see that the entire flow is being triggered by a webhook. For those not familiar with webhooks, what a webhook is, it's simply a message or a trigger which is sent out by a different application. In this case, the other application is Airtable. So if I make a change in Airtable, there's an automation which sends a webhook that is then received by this webhook and starts running the flow. Once the webhook is received, we continue on to the Airtable node, which I use to pull all of the information that I have from my lead up till this point from inside of my CRM. I use Airtable as my CRM, and get all of the information in this flow so I can work with it, manipulate it, do whatever. Just to give you guys some context, I will quickly jump into my Airtable to show you how I've set up my lead list, what information's already available from scraping Apollo in this case, and how I send a webhook from Airtable to my n8n workflow to start the process. So here in Airtable, I have an example lead list, one of my lead lists. It's a list containing 1,000 leads, as you can see in the bottom left. They're all yet to be enriched. That is their status, meaning the only information I have is what I scraped from Apollo. You can see I have their name, their email address, their location, and we can immediately spot a fault in one of these because I only work with US-based companies, and you can see that this company, Wolf Tech, is based out of China, meaning this should be filtered from my lead list, and there will probably be a lot more. I can see Berlin over here. So it's obvious from even at first glance that this lead list needs some cleaning up. And that's exactly what we're going to be doing with the flow that I've set up, and I'll walk you guys through it. But how do I start that flow from inside of my CRM, from inside of Airtable? So my Airtable automation is triggered. So it sends a webhook to n8n when the status of my lead is lead yet to be enriched, and I check this box. Then it starts running, the flow starts running inside of n8n. Because this lead operates out of China, you can see it updated its status to lost, meaning it didn't qualify, it didn't pass the test, and it was removed kind of from my lead list. Okay, back in n8n, let me kind of walk you through it. So what I just showed you is that when I scrape a lead list from Apollo, I also scrape their location. So we already had the location without doing any further due diligence or any further enrichment. So when the lead was pulled from the Airtable, I had all their information, including their location. So I could immediately set up an if node, which simply checks if the location matches the United States. If it is a match, it would be sent through to the true branch. If it isn't a match, so if it's anything else than the United States, it would update my CRM, as you could just see, and it would update the status of the lead to lost, which you can see down here. Setting up the Airtable nodes is very straightforward because they have an integration with Airtable. So it's just setting up your credentials, finding the right base and linking the right table. I'll show you a few test runs later on in this video, but I first will quickly walk you through what the flow does and why I've set it up like this, before diving into specifics and mentioning why I set it up in the way that I did set it up. Besides the US yes or no, so to check if the company is based in the US, yes or no, there are two more if nodes. One is to check if the company or the business is a B2B business or a B2C business. Because I am personally in lead generation for B2B businesses, it would make no sense to reach out to B2C businesses and they would immediately either respond with please unsubscribe me from this list, or they would put me in spam, which would hurt my sending reputation. Besides the fact that it would be a waste of my input tokens into other large language models, which I would have used to enrich the lead and send them an email through Instantly, which is the email provider I always use. So as I already mentioned, and as you already could see, if the location of the lead inside of my CRM does not match the US, it is sent through to the false branch. It is outputted as false, and the status of the lead is updated. You can delete, whatever you want to do, but I'd like to keep them there so I can check for duplicates in the future, so I don't have to run them through workflows over and over and over again if I scrape another lead list and the name is in there as well. If the lead is based in the US, it goes to the true branch because we want to do some further due diligence to do some further qualifying. How do we do this? Well, we do this by fetching the HTML from the company's LinkedIn page. I'll quickly go back to the lead list and I can show you over here that we have their company LinkedIn URL, so it's very easy for us. I'll show you some examples later on in this video, but I first want to give you guys a quick run through so you have a very clear understanding of what's going to happen before I dive into specifics. So what happens in this HTTP node is we fetch all of the HTML that's on the page of the company LinkedIn. So we get their about section, we get the number of employees, we get all the details that they've put on there. Then we use this code node to filter out that HTML code, which only leaves us with the plain text, which makes it easier for us to read, makes it easier for the large language model to read, and saves us a lot of input tokens. even though large language models are getting cheaper and cheaper, it's still always a good thing to be cost conscious, especially if you do this in bulk. There are days where I enrich well over 10,000 leads, so you can calculate the costs, and it hurts the bottom line at some point, especially if it's a waste of input tokens and a waste of time. That's also why I implemented this qualification, not only for myself, but also for all of the clients I work with. So the text that remained from the LinkedIn company page, which includes everything, even recent posts, is put into a ChatGPT note. Let me show you guys a prompt, because here it gets kind of interesting. So first I just gave it a task. So I'm describing what it is. You're an expert in professional business analysis. You guys get the point. And I wanted to analyze, scrape LinkedIn profile of a company to produce a high quality detailed report. Then below, there's a much more elaborate prompt. Here I've written out everything I wanted to identify from the output, so from the LinkedIn company page. So I want some company insights, a summary of their mission and vision. I want to identify mentions of recent growth, because if you scrape everything from their company LinkedIn page, you also get their most recent posts. So if they've mentioned anything about opening a new office or whatever, hiring new people, you want that information because it may be useful down the line if you're ever planning on writing a personalized email. I want to know their business model, because I want to know if they're B2B or B2C. ChatGPT is very good at business analytics, so from a small about section, they can easily identify if it's B2B or B2C. I would say it's 99.9% accuracy. And then lastly, very important for us, because we don't want to reach out to businesses who don't have a budget, and we don't want to reach out to corporations who are too big to offer our services to. We want to know the exact number of employees, because that gives us a very good indication of where the business is in terms of growth and size, which in turn gives us quite a good idea of if there is any budget to hire us, or if they're too big for us to be a good fit. Even though I tinker with prompting each and every day, I still don't always get the output I want. So here I have some notes which have proven to be a necessity to give me a consistent output, which I can use over and over again without having to go in and fix errors each and every day. And then if I scroll down, you might see this. This is the JSON. Why is there some JSON? That is because I will be needing certain things to be outputted the exact same way each and every time. So I'm going to be needing the business model as an output and the number of employees as an output. So I have to tell the large language model, or ChatGPT in this case, exactly how it needs to output it. Otherwise, if I test run this, it might output business model. The next time I test run it, it might say business type, whatever. It might just give you variations of the output, meaning the other nodes, which need very specific parameters to be able to check and verify stuff, don't work because they don't recognize the input, if that makes sense. But I'll get into depth a bit further down the line, and I'll show you what I mean and why this is so important. Just note that this seems a lot more difficult, or looks a lot more difficult than it is. You can actually just, based on this, you can copy and paste this into ChatGPT and ask it to give you a JSON output template, and it would produce you something similar to this. It doesn't have to be the exact same, as long as the output is consistent, it'll work. And then lastly, because it does extract recent posts, I wanted to know today's date, because I'm asking the large language model to rank the recent posts based on relevancy, and time plays a very big factor in deciding relevancy. At least I do think so. So when the ChatGPT node, the large language model node, whatever you want to call it, has identified the business model, so if it's B2B or B2C, we move over to the if node. If the output, which is going to be exactly this, does not match B2C, it'll output it to the through branch. If it does match B2C, it'll be put to the false branch. And once again, the status of the lead will be updated in Airtable to lost, and it would say B2C, for example, giving me a very clear understanding of why this lead does not need any further enrichment and I don't need to reach out to them. If it passed that test, we move on to the headcount one, which I simply use to check if the company size, or if the exact number of employees is smaller than 20 and larger than 5. Because through trial and error, I kind of figured out for myself and for the service that I offer that if the business is between 6 and 19 employees, that is kind of the perfect time to step in and offer my services, because it usually means there is some budget and they're looking to scale up, which I can help them with. So if the company would be smaller than 5 or larger than 20, once again, the Airtable would be updated, losing the lead, deleting the lead, whatever. It would just give me an indication that it's not necessary to reach out to them or enrich them any further. So let's say your lead qualifies. It is in US, they are a B2B, and they're, in my case, between 6 and 19 people. You would attach this part, this snippet of a workflow, to a larger enrichment part of the flow, which would look something like this. This is one of the ones that I do use. So what would happen then? You would scrape their company website, because next to the URL to their company LinkedIn page, you also have the URL to their company website. Or you do anyways, because you have their email, and everything after the ad is their domain. So even if you don't have the company website from the lead scrape, you can always use an expression inside of n8n to get their email and split it to only use HTTPS dash last part of their email, which is their domain, to their website 910 times. So the same as you would do for the company LinkedIn, you would scrape all of the HTML, which would return you all of the text that is present on the homepage. You would filter that HTML. You would then analyze everything. I mean, maybe there are testimonials, maybe there are case studies. Probably they're talking about their unique selling point. So you might have an understanding of and you have a better understanding of their business, which can all be used to either fill in variables in a template, an email template that you wrote in advance, or it can be used to write a very highly personalized email opener, which massively improves your reply rates, and especially positive reply rates. You would then clean their company name, because inside of the Airtable, you may have noticed that some companies are called xyzinc.com or XYZ LLC, you name it. You, of course, don't want to mention that LLC or that Inc part inside of the email, because it looks very robotic. No human writes like that, because you don't talk like that. Then you could summarize the information from their LinkedIn and the information from their company website in here to get a very comprehensive picture of your lead. Let's say you move it on to your sales team, for example. They'll have to do a call. They would simply have to read a small summary about the person to get all the information they need to be handling the sales call. Moving on to writing a personalized line. Writing a personalized line to open an email with is very important. It has been, I've been using it from the beginning, but I've also tested not using a personalized line and immediately jumping into either my offer or the desired outcome I can offer my clients. And there is such a big distinction between doing your due diligence, or letting AI do the due diligence, but make it look like you've done your research, and sending something relevant to them. As I mentioned earlier, like a recent post or a testimonial from their website, things like that. Just a quick compliment suffices, but you can let AI write it probably better than I ever could. And then you would upload the personalized line and all of the information into your Airtable, and you would also upload it to instantly, so you can automatically, without having to do anything yourself, send out cold emails to all of the leads you've qualified and enriched. Okay, that was all of the theory for today. Now let me quickly jump back into Airtable, enrich a few leads, show you some of the ones that didn't pass the qualification test, so you guys have a better understanding of how it works and you actually see it into action. And I can also maybe elaborate a bit more on how I set up these nodes, and you guys can actually see the input and output of everything. So here inside of Airtable, once again, I handpicked 3 leads, which I knew wouldn't pass qualifications. One of them is based out of China. It isn't in the US, so it doesn't qualify for that one. One is a B2C, and one of them is a company with a headcount bigger than 20. So I'll show you the executions inside of n8n. So don't pay attention to any of the errors. I did some testing, but I'll run you through each one of them. One of them was from China, so it didn't match US, so it updated not in the US. One of them was a B2C, so it didn't pass this if node, meaning it was updated to the Airtable as not B2B. And then lastly, one of them didn't pass the headcount one, meaning it was because it was too big. So it updated my Airtable saying it was too big or too small. Doesn't really matter. They didn't pass the qualification. I'll dive into this one to show you what the webhook does and what all of these nodes do when they actually process some information. So firstly, of course, the webhook. What does a webhook do? As I said, the webhook was triggered by a change inside of my Airtable. So I checked the box and the status of the lead was yet to be enriched. So it started the enrichment process before it starts the qualification process. So what did the webhook send? The only thing the webhook sent was the record ID. That is why we need to follow up the webhook with a Airtable node. The task of this Airtable node is to fetch us all of the other information that is corresponding with this record ID. You can see that the record ID matches what you see here on the left. What you do to set this up, for those who aren't familiar with n8n, you would just drag this from the left and place it here, put it in expression, and it would work every time. It would be a variable. So no matter which lead you would try to enrich, because each of them has their specific record ID, it would just work with each and every one of them without you having to manually input anything. So this was the third lead in my Airtable, which had the company which was too big. As you can see, the status was yet to be enriched. So that's why it worked and the automation worked. Then we were checking if the location matched the US. We already know it does, but let me check on the left. Yeah, here you can see the location was already inside of my CRM. Raleigh, North Carolina, United States. So location matches United States because it's in there. Same setup, you would just drag this from the left, place it there. Then on to something a bit more interesting, but also very easy to set up, which is the HTTP node. On the left, once again, and I already showed you inside of my Airtable, but we have their LinkedIn organization URL, which is the URL to their LinkedIn company page. So what we do is we set the method to get, paste in their URL, or drag it from the left in here. So once again, it's a variable. The URL is different for every lead. And then it just fetches us all of the HTML that is present on that page, which you see on the right side, which is the output side. A lot of this is code. You can see some relevant text, which we actually want to keep. How do we filter out the code and keep this? We use a code node. By now, since I've been doing this for a while, have gotten a bit more familiar with code, but when I started like 6 months ago, I was also not familiar with code, and something like this wouldn't scare me, but it would make me question myself. I generated all this code with the help of ChatGPT, so you can do the same at home. What this code does, just to quickly give you guys an idea, it goes through the content, it analyzes it, and it filters it out. So all you're left with is the plain text, as you can see on the right side, which is exactly the same as you would find on their company LinkedIn page, including their number of employees, an about section of their company, when they were founded, what they're about, what they do. So the AI has enough information to determine if it's a B2B or a B2C. And you can already see here that there are some recent posts. So all with all, a very amazing, very quick way to get a lot of insights into a company without having to lift a finger yourself. So I already walked you guys through the prompt of the LLM node, but I'll dive into it and show you the output. So if you remember, I asked it to give me some company insights. I asked it to retrieve me the recent posts and updates, as it did with the timestamps. Once again, because I think time plays a very big factor in relevancy, or when it comes to relevancy, I asked it to determine business model based on the output from the previous node, which was just text on the company LinkedIn page. And I asked it to output the exact number of employees. It is important that this is outputted as a number. I mean, these are numbers, but there's a distinction between something being outputted as a string or something being outputted as a number. And if it would be a string, which you can see would be an A, then the if node wouldn't be able to process it, or it wouldn't work, or it wouldn't know how to read it and say if it's larger or smaller than a specific number. But I'll show you in a second. So from the LinkedIn organization page, the large language model was able to determine if it matches a B2B or a B2C. What this code in green translates to is it translates to B2B, to the output. B2B, of course, is not equal to B2C, so it's forwarded to the true branch instead of false branch, meaning we continue on to the next qualification, which was the headcount. As I just mentioned, it is very important for the number to be outputted as a number, as you can see by the hashtag, because we need that to kind of qualify if the number is larger or smaller than X. So once again, what's in green? It's a variable, because for every lead, number of employees is going to be different, or well, there's a very high chance it's going to be different. And I just pulled this from the left, placed it in here. This translates to 26, and this translates to 26. 26 is higher than 20, also higher than 5. Because it's higher than 20 already, it doesn't match, and it's outputted to the false branch, meaning all 3 of these leads that I showed as handpicked examples didn't qualify and are not worth pursuing for my B2B lead generation business, mainly focusing companies in US. Okay, that about sums up how you can automatically qualify and segment your lead list so you only reach out to the right prospects. No more wasting time on leads that will never convert, just highly targeted outreach to businesses that actually need what you offer or are likely to be needing what you offer. To quickly break it down, this workflow filters leads based on 3 key factors. First being, is the company based in the US? That's because I primarily work with businesses in the US, and this helps me avoid outreach to companies that wouldn't be a fit due to language barriers or other restrictions. Secondly, is the company B2B or B2C? Because I am in the B2B lead generation business. I only work with B2B clients because my service just doesn't apply to B2C companies. And thirdly, what is their company size? If the company is too small, they likely don't have the budget. And if it's too big, they probably already have an in-house sales team handling lead generation. This way, I'm not just reaching out to random businesses, I'm reaching out to decision makers at companies that actually need my services. And that is what makes all the difference and gives me quite amazing results from my email campaigns. When you take the time to properly categorize your leads, your messaging becomes way more specific and relevant. That is what separates a cold email that gets ignored from one that actually sparks interest and leads to booked calls. So, if this was helpful, make sure to like and subscribe, because this is just a small part of much more advanced automations I break down on this channel. And if you want to download my workflows and get an even deeper insight on how to land clients faster using AI and automation, be sure to check out my school community. As I said, the link is in the description. I want to thank you guys very much for watching, especially if you stayed all the way to the end. I'll see you guys in the next one.